So welcome to this Unbound Press celebration, 1 year anniversary celebration call. I am delighted today to be joined by three of the Unbound Press authors who've worked with us over the first year. Oh, and thank you for the congratulations, Rifla. So I'm being joined by Angie Northwood, Anna Sampson and Tara Jackson. Hey, so gorgeous to have you here with me. And the other Unbound Press authors are here with us in spirit as well. So what I want to do today is share a little bit of the story behind the Unbound Press. I'll do that first, and then I want to have a chat with each of you magical beings who's here with me today to talk about your experience and your specific book. Oh, DK's here as well, fantastic. So if I might just mute everyone else just for the recording. I always say this, I hate muting people. I'm all about being fully expressed. So the Unbound Press, 1 year ago today, we launched the Unbound Press, publishing imprint for authors whose work activates transformation in others. It's really very much for transformational writing and for authors who want to, who are keen to share aspects of their story as well. That's another really important theme for the Unbound Press. And it wasn't planned for me to launch the Unbound Press. It was completely unexpected. And I think it's helpful to share this story because very often the most kind of magical things that happen in our lives and in our work can be completely unexpected. And the idea for the Unbound Press, I think it first connected with me, but it wasn't clear back at the beginning of probably 2017 actually, but I didn't realize what it was. I didn't realize it was a publishing imprint. I was in the process of writing my second book, Unbound. I was working with a wonderful mentor at the time, Claire Roach, who's an incredible intuitive mentor. We were at the beginning of our process working together. And as I said, I was writing Unbound. And we did this visualization. She guided me through this visualization. And I'm like, when I'm doing that kind of thing, I don't very often see visual, like clear visual images. I just get a sense of something. It's not often really, really clear for me. I might just get one word or something. But this time I got a really clear visual image. And what I could see was a group of women all around me, and each one had a silver drop in her hands. She was just like standing there in the circle with this silver drop. And then each of those women put them together, like pulled them together in the center. And there was this gorgeous, like silver pool of liquid, like a lake, that had been created by each of these individual silver drops. And the words came through really clearly: the power to move mountains. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It feels really powerful. It's a very beautiful image. And I thought at the time that was just related to the work that I was doing. I was working with different women in my business, like supporting them to live a more unbound life. I thought, well, okay, well, that's it. Like, each woman is bringing her own silver drop of like her unique expression in the world. But what I've come to realize is that actually, I think each of those silver drops are the books that are being created through the Unbound Press. And when we come together to, like, each of those books is powerful on its own, but when we come together and share those books collectively, then it has the power to move mountains. So it was about a year later, when I was coming towards the end of writing Unbound, and I was meeting with my publisher, the wonderful Sean Patrick of That Guy's House. We were meeting in London to talk about the final manuscript for Unbound and plans for launching it. And it was him who said, well, I can see you like working with other writers, other authors, and having your own publishing imprint. And it would be something like the Unbound Press. That would be the name of it. And as soon as he said that, I just felt this sense of knowing in my body. It just felt completely right, even though I hadn't been thinking at all of either, you know, doing that kind of work or certainly having a publishing imprint. But because it felt so right, I decided to trust it and move ahead with it, and launched it this time last year. And so grateful that different authors have stepped forward to say, yeah, I want to be part of it too. And I'm, so honoured and grateful to the authors who joined us during this first year. The first author to sign was Erica Walter, who's actually here. I'm in Rochester in New York at the moment, and Erica is in New York as well. She's just finished the manuscript for her book Motherhood Meets Me. Jennifer Booker then signed with us to publish her book The New Normal, coming out as transgender in midlife, which is like an amazing story, really powerful book. Jo Gifford signed with us to publish her book Brilliance Unboxed, which again is just finished the final manuscript. This seems to be the time of year when everyone or a group of people are finishing their final manuscript. So that's going to be coming out early next year. And then Tara, you were the next person, the next author to sign with us. So Tara, I'm going to unmute you and we'll have a chat. So Tara's book, Embodied, a self-care guide for sensitive souls, came out in, when did it come out, Tara? July, yeah, yeah. So tell us, what made you decide to write Embodied in the first place?
It's, well, I've always wanted to write a book, and it had been kind of screaming at me really, really loudly when I met you. It was like, you just have to do this now. It was just complete, like there was no other option to do it but to do it. Yeah.
You couldn't not do it.
Yeah, basically.
I love that. The actual book has got like a really strong personality. I think it's like wasn't going to let you not write it. And what was that writing process like? I mean, I know that we worked together through it. You were part of the Unbound Writing Mastermind. But was it what you expected?
No, not at all. No, definitely not. And Anna knows, of course, as well. Being in the group with you guys was amazing. Yeah, it was messy. It was wonderful, cathartic, completely messy. That was probably the biggest thing for me. And it just was not what I expected. And it didn't come together in some linear way. It came out in bits here, there, everywhere, from old journals, from bits walking and talking. It was a completely unexpected but completely natural way of doing it. It was wonderful, and it was so healing for me. That was my experience of it, because I wrote the book for myself, and it did that. Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, I loved that, kind of witnessing the healing kind of journey that you allowed yourself to go on during the writing process, and to really stay with that rather than trying to rush it. It was really powerful.
No, thank you to you and the Writing Mastermind for holding that space for that, because I think that was magical to be allowed, in a way, to be given permission to do that, and not push on. And I took naps, in our writing sessions rather than writing, because that's what I needed to do, and that was amazing. Like, this is so cool. This is how we're meant to do this. This feels really good in my body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something, each of you and each of the other authors kind of inspire me continually to be kind of feeling into what feels good, not only in terms of like the Unbound writing process, but also for the Unbound Press, like how to move forward with this, and not kind of having any kind of particular expectation of how we do things, like continually asking the question, well, what feels good here? What feels most kind of like expansive and freeing, rather than kind of doing it the way things have always been done. So thank you to each of you for kind of bringing so much insight and awareness around that. And Tara, what's it been like for Embody to actually be out in the world? What's that process been like?
I'm at the place now where it's kind of just taken on a life of its own. Yeah. And I'm completely detached from it in many ways. And when it comes and people comment, or I get a testimonial or feedback, it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's my book baby. But it really feels like it's in university now, kind of doing its own thing, finding its own way. It really feels like that. Honestly, it does. Because it does. When you birth the book, it's like a baby, and then it goes through the teens. And now mine's in university. It's like forming its own kind of life at the moment. So that's where we're at right now.
I love that. I've got
really
such a strong image.
Partying, doing all the things I did. Yeah, exactly.
Doing all the things you're writing about in your book. It's going through
exactly.
Fantastic. And what's it been like for you, like to work with the Unbound Press and to release Embodied through that?
Just so magical. And it was such an intuitive, this is a yes. Like when you mentioned the Unbound Press, it was like, yes, I know this is right for me. It completely was. And it just feels like it's a new kind of wave of books, a new type, like you say, this transformational, deep, real shit, to be honest. Like I really want, the real stuff, the deep, honest truth. And I love that. I think it's so needed. And I love, it's such a wonderful thing to be a part of. And to see what's coming next, and really love that. It's an honor. It truly is.
Thank you. And thank you for saying that, because I sometimes find it hard to put into words. Like, obviously the Unbound Press is a publishing imprint, we're here to publish books. But there's a very specific energy to it, which sometimes I find it challenging to find the words for. So it helps to have each of you here kind of adding your perspective as well, and talking about kind of what's ahead and how we're going to move forward. It's very much a co-created experience. So I'm open to whatever wants to come forward as we move ahead. And I think your next book is coming through at the moment. So are you able to share anything about that, or
not yet?
No.
No.
You're on the spot there, Tara.
Yeah, I know. No, but it does feel like it's just going to fall out. It really does. When I give it time and space, actually. I think once you've written the first one, I know you've said this, it's like it just comes. It's like it definitely feels different doing it this time, or being open to it this time.
And when I say it just comes, it makes it sound easy.
No, it doesn't feel easy, but
but you've done it before.
Exactly. So exactly.
So you kind of know what to expect. Thank you so much, Tara, for being part of the Unbound Press and sharing your magic in such a beautiful way. It's just been such an honor to work with you, and I can't wait to see what emerges next. Very exciting. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicola.
Angie, Anna, either of you got anything you want to kind of ask or share with Tara? Yeah, go for it. You feel free to unmute yourselves.
There we go. Tara, it's so lovely to see you. And I'm really curious about this sense that your book is now at university and it's at that stage in life. Mine still feels very much like a toddler that I need to keep watch over and kind of keep escorting through the world to help it cross roads and things. So what do you feel that you kind of went through those different stages with your book, from the birth through to packing it off to university, or did it all just sort of leap from one to the next?
It went really quickly. but I definitely did feel like I went through the stages, although it did it on its own. And I mean, Nicola, you supported me here, kind of a meditation to connect with the book as a published book. And that was when I really felt it as this thing of its own. And yeah, it's done the journey, but it went really quickly. In the beginning, it was, yes, I need to nurture it and be there and get it out there and share it. And I did, and some guest posts and all that stuff. But now it's like, no, just let me be. I'll call on you when I need you. And it just happens, honestly. Yeah. So it's quite magical. Yeah, for me.
Really, thank you. Really magical. And I think that's really helpful for anyone watching. Like, a big part of the process that I encourage writers to embrace is really interacting with your book as an energy of its own. Like, it has its own essence, and you can like co-create with that. You know, you can ask questions of your book like through the writing process. But what I love about what you've shared there, Tara, is like, and beyond that, once it's out in the world, you can continue having this relationship with your book and, you know, allow it to be shared in the way that it wants to. It can have a life of its own. So,
and it really does feel like a separate thing. Like, what, you know, the process, it's separate now. It's a very different energy to when I was writing it. Completely different. Yeah.
And it goes out, and it has, you know, it has its own relationship with each of the readers, which we can't be attached to what that relationship is like. We might have hopes of what it will be like, but we really do. It is a process of letting go. So wow, it's got to university quickly. So
really quickly.
I can imagine embodied, like, moving through its life, having this wonderful kind of like crone energy very soon. So much wisdom to pass. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you so much.
Oh, so Anna. Anna was the next author to sign with us for her book Desire Lines, which I'm always excited when someone chooses to publish with the Unbound Press, but I do remember the very first time I spoke to you, Anna, and the Unbound Press, it was just kind of forming at the time, and I knew it was something that was going to be happening. But as soon as I heard about Desire Lines, I was like, I would love Desire Lines to be published by the Unbound Press. But I never wanted to kind of, you know, I was always like, you know, it's your decision, whatever you want to do. I really wanted what was best for you. So, but yeah, I was super excited that you decided to release Desire Lines with us. So yeah, same as with Tara, what made you decide to write? I know Desire Lines was kind of in the works for quite some time, and in a drawer for a little while as well.
Yes.
So tell us some more about that process.
Yeah, and just to say that for me, I did look at other publishers as well as the Unbound Press, and I think what I kept coming back to was, you got the book, and as in you understood what I was trying to do and say with it, and that to me made all the difference. I couldn't imagine anybody else being so supportive and getting me and getting the book as well as you have. So thank you so much for that. And that was a huge relief, because I you know, some people have described Desire Lines as quite a challenging book, and for me it was quite challenging to write at times, because it's about sexual desire, and it's about things that we don't often talk or read about, but that I really wanted to shine a light on. In terms of us being able to choose our own paths on our journeys with desire. And so the process for me was one of a bit like Tara described, you know, this feeling of being able to do it in my own way. Whereas previously I thought there was a certain way that one had to write a book. And once I realized that within Unbound writing, I could include memoir, I could include fictional stories, I could include reflective questions and poetry and anything else that I wanted to put in there that I felt really added value to the book. That was so liberating. And that actually made the process of writing so much easier, because I wasn't second guessing myself the whole time about whether, is this how a book should be written? And I could just kind of dedicate myself to the content rather than worrying about whether it was a proper book. It was going to be a proper book or not. And it is a proper book.
Well,
It's
it is
got
a proper
pages
book.
and
I
a
know.
cover.
I've got a copy here. I've got a copy of Embody. I've got a copy of each of your books here, and Desire Light.
Yes,
It's a real book.
it's a real book.
It's a real. It's so funny, isn't it? I think that comes up a lot. It's like, oh no, these ideas about what a proper book is and how it should be and how it should be written. There's all of these kind of rules that we can subscribe to that
Mm.
just aren't true. And when we allow ourselves to break free of those, it's really powerful. But that can be challenging in itself, because it can feel very comforting to think, okay, this is how I write a book, and it has to be one thing or the other. So what was it like for you to actually give yourself permission to like bring in your personal stories and like some fictional elements as well? What was it like for you to do that?
It was brilliant, and I've always written, and I'd written fictional books before, and I'd written non-fictional magazine articles and that kind of thing. And so finding this space that was just for me, where I could bring it all together, felt really powerful. Yeah, the powerful is a good word. I think that kind of sums up how I felt, and being able to, again, like Tara, it wasn't linear. I didn't start at the beginning and finish at the end. In fact, I got to what I thought was the end, and then one of the questions in our writing mastermind group that you posed was, is there anything else that needs to come true? And I sat with that question for a couple of months, and there was a whole other chapter that went in the middle of the book that needed time to develop, and almost like a marinating of ideas that enabled it to come through, and my ongoing personal experience, because being able to share my personal experience was really important to me. I wanted to this idea of shining a light on desire has been really important, because a lot of the time shame lives in the dark places, and if we feel any shame at all around our sexuality or what we're into sexually, then there's something really powerful about shining a light on it for ourselves. So yeah, that, I don't know if that's answered the question. I've kind of forgotten the question because I'm just so excited.
Yeah, no, I'm just entranced. You did answer the question. But and because all of these books actually are very personal. That seems to be a theme of the books that are coming through the Unbound Press. And that again has its own challenges. It's one thing to write it, and I'm wondering what it was like, Anna, to actually release Desire Lines into the world.
Yeah, it was another step on the challenge, I would say, and I felt what I described as like a vulnerability hangover for quite a while after. And what actually, well, two things really helped me. One was imagining my book like a toddler. And so, I'd birthed this book. It was out in the world. It could stand on its own 2 feet, but I really didn't trust it to be let loose on a busy high street without me being there to keep watch over and to keep guiding it. So that kind of has helped me to keep showing up for Desire Lines. Like I'm still, I don't think mothering is the right word, but I think being a custodian to the book that's out in the world. And the other thing really helped me was that one of the really powerful things that came through for me when I was writing Desire Lines was this connection with a creative muse, and the archetype of Lilith. And again, I feel a real sense of responsibility towards Lilith and all that she gave me in the process of writing the book, that I need to keep honoring that relationship. So I think that sometimes it can feel like such a very alone process, but knowing that I'm part of the Unbound Press, and this Unbound writers group, and having your ongoing support and the others in the group, plus that sense of, there's this archetype of Lilith kind of still watching out for me, and then my responsibility to the book. It all kind of comes together for me, that gives me so much more confidence in saying, this is my story, and it's okay for me to tell it and share it and champion it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And well, I know from seeing a couple of your posts this week, there's a new book that's coming through. And do you want to say anything about that?
I do, because I'm so excited. So this was again, it's another. Currently it's a fictional book, which we'll wait to see if it remains as a purely fictional book. And it's about love, but it's not about romantic love. And when I did your guided visualization at the start of this week's Unbound Writing Challenge, the message that came through when I connected with the essence of my next book was that I want to tell the greatest love story. But but my sense is that it's really not a romantic love story. It's bigger than that. And I've got this character who I'm already in love with. She's amazing. I'm going to have to share little snippets about her because she's just incredible. And again, she's directing this story, and it's magical to be a part of this character's evolution. So I'm super excited. I really am.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I really want to know more about this character.
I think I will share some bits as I write, which usually I don't do. Usually I'm quite private about sharing as I go, unless it's in a very sort of protected space. But this, I think, what I've learned from writing Desire Lines is to really embrace that sense of expansiveness that can come with the writing process, rather than just sort of tucking myself away. And because as I say, I'm in love with her, so I have to share her.
Don't deprive us of her. Oh, how exciting, how exciting. And also to say, as part of these 1 year anniversary celebrations, Anna and I have created, well, it's Anna really who's created it, but I'm speaking to you about how to write as your unbound sexual self. We recorded a session around that. If you want to experiment and explore some erotic writing for yourself, we've recorded something which will be out next week, which I'll be sharing. So I'm excited to share that and to explore it more personally. It's an aspect of my writing I haven't really explored. So look out for that next week.
Fantastic. Will you be sharing?
I'm putting me on the spot now. Who knows? I thought my next book was going to be about writing, but maybe there will be who knows?
Fantastic.
We'll see. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Angie, Tara, have either of you got anything you want to ask or share with Anna about her process? Or anyone watching, if anyone's got any questions, Tara, go ahead.
I just want to say a huge thank you to Anna, because your vulnerability and bravery and courage and sharing it was just so inspiring to me, and it kind of gave me permission as well in so many ways. So just thank you for doing that. It's really really great.
Thank you. I feel it was a really reciprocal thing as well. I felt so supported by you as well. So thank you for that.
Hello. Unbound Writing Mastermind buddy. And Rifna's actually asking, and I think this is, I don't know is this about Anna's book, Rifna? What will that publication be called? Silk Bounded. Maybe that's kind of about my book that's not written yet. Do you know what the erotic books? I mean, Anna, do you know what your next book's going to be called?
I do, but that bit I'm not revealing. Yeah.
So you'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But the session around erotic writing is called How to Write as Your Unbound Sexual Self, and I'll be releasing that on the Unbound Press page. I think next Tuesday it's going out, so look out for that. And I'll also be sending it out to my email list as well. So Rifna, I think you're on that, so you will get that. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, so I'm going through the rest of the authors. Sarah Lloyd was the next one to sign with us. Sarah's amazing book, Connecting the Dots, which is about PR, public relations, and how to use that in a much more conscious way. That is in process at the moment. That's out in February, which we're very excited about. And Angie, yay, our newest author, Angie Northwood, whose book, Take Off Your Armour and Have a Cup of Tea, was released, yay, and I've got my copy as well, in October. I'm just trying to, there you are, yay. Oh, Angie, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, fantastic to have you with us, and I was so delighted when you joined the Unbound Press family as well. I've known Angie for quite a few years. We were talking yesterday, I think it's about 7 years. I met Angie when I went to do some womb blessing training in Wales that you'd organised with Miranda Gray, and stayed at your gorgeous healing centre in West Wales, which was just so beautiful. And when I met Angie, I felt like I knew you. I was like, we've met before, but we hadn't. So obviously, in a past life or something, soul family. So it's so exciting to work with you throughout the writing of Take Off Your Armour. And I know you were part of the Unbound Writing Challenge that we ran for the first time last year. And was that an idea that had been bubbling away for a while, Angie? Did you know that, that's what the book was going to be about? Or
I did. But it was only because I saw your post about the Unbound Writing Challenge that I decided it was that, the synchronicity. It was time, and so your post popped up, and I knew immediately that I was going to do it. There was no question about it. And I knew that as soon as I completed the 5 days, I was going to go on and do the mastermind writing course. It's like a horse out of the gate. It's just like, this is just, I've got to do this now. This is so important to do it now.
Yeah. And your book, again, is very personal. It's about your life, your experiences. And tell us a little bit about what the book's about.
Okay. Well, that's such an interesting question because it's changed. When I was first asked the question, it was it's about being a mother of a disabled child, my daughter Molly. And it is, it still is. It will always be that. And it is also about being a menopausal woman approaching, crone, the magnificence of crone. And how the two stories interweave. But in recent weeks, since it's been released, which is a month ago now, and when people have been asking me that same question, I actually feel now so strongly that the core of the book is actually about love and learning to nurture and nourish ourselves, take care of ourselves. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of others. And for me, that's a piece in my life that I will always have. I mean, we all have it, but very specifically when I think about my daughter, I will always be loving her, caring for her. So I would say now my book is about, it's about love, it's about community, it's about nurturing and nourishing ourselves to keep well.
Oh my goodness, I love how that's kind of changed and shifted for you. Obviously the book is like, the words are the same. It's gone out into the world, but your perspective of it, from it being out in the world, has changed, and hearing from other people.
Exactly. And it is that when, when people have been giving me feedback over the last month, what's been so wonderful is that different parts of the book have resonated with different people. So for some people, it's been about the pieces where I talk about my relationship with my mother and healing the mother wounds, and how that's resonated for them. Today I had some great feedback from someone's partner, a male partner, who had read it, and he said, oh my goodness, the bit that really resonated for me was when I read about how Rob, my partner, had felt when he saw me as this changing woman. And so, different people have found different parts to resonate with them, and that's so exciting. And it's I don't know, there's just, it kind of brings in different layers and different depths of the book, that, because throughout the writing process, I don't know about Anna and Tanya, it's almost like you outside of yourself for some of it, and other times, so deeply in oneself, and not realizing that the different pieces that we're putting together, how they will then go out and resonate for other people.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've definitely experienced that personally. Like, people have like received things from my books that were unexpected for me. It's like, I hadn't realized that it would have that impact, or one part in particular has stood out for them, which I was quite surprised about. So everyone does have that kind of unique relationship with your book. I wonder, Anna, Tara, have you experienced anything like that? I'd love to open it up and just ask. Yeah, you want to share anything around that? Being surprised about, or changing your perception of your book once it's out there in the world?
I think I had a lot of self-emphasis on particular chapters within my book, and they were probably the ones that I felt most vulnerable about. And the ones that I kind of felt were the easiest to write, which for me were the Lilith stories, which are the fictional components. I've been surprised that the Lilith stories have resonated so strongly with people. Like, that seems to be a lot of what people take away from the book, which is fantastic for me, because story as metaphor and archetype and myth is such a great way to share themes and ideas, and for people to explore it in relation to themselves. So that actually, I'm so glad that I included the Lilith stories in there, because they seem to be a really key thread that weaves throughout the book. So yeah, that's been lovely to get that feedback.
Yeah.
And the chapters that I felt perhaps most vulnerable about, the response I've had from most people has been different to what I expected. I genuinely thought I was going to be shunned for some of it. And actually the response I've had back is, you've given me permission. I feel I can explore this aspect of myself now, or this helps me to make sense of something that happened for me. So people are taking it and making it into their own story, which is exactly kind of what I wanted all along. So that's fantastic.
I think that's really powerful for people to hear, because sometimes, like, there can be that fear of, oh my goodness, like I said, I'm going to be shunned, or people are going to judge or criticize me or attack me for what I'm writing. And so often it's the complete opposite. We are just kind of giving permission for our writing for others to be more fully expressed. So yeah, how amazing to be brave enough to do that. Tara, was there anything in particular that came up for you around that? No. It's just Embodied's just university doing it. Who knows what Embodied's doing? Exactly. So Angie, I'm interested because, like, both Anna and Tara have talked about writing in a non-linear way, and your book is very much it takes us through your life. There's a strong element of memoir to it. So obviously you knew kind of what that process was because you've lived it. But did you write it in that way, or did it did it come through? Yeah.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm one of the things that I loved about the Unbound Writing Mastermind course is that, you know, there is such a focus and a deep understanding that we are cyclical beings, and that's my work, you know, a warm white woman. And so it was just so wonderful to be held in that type of space, and to write in that way, you know, with my cycle. So not my menstrual cycle, that's, you know, that doesn't happen for me anymore, but with the moon cycle, and really, really noticing. I mean, it was wonderful learning and growth in that as well, because, you know, there were times where writing was just completely out of the question. You know, it just wasn't the right time in the moon cycle to do that. And then dark moon for me is the time where all of the creativity comes in, all of the visioning comes in, all of the deep diving, and the bravery, actually, also, you know, that's kind of just dropped in for me. It was also the time where I was most able to be vulnerable and to write those pieces that, you know, kind of takes your breath away when you first, you know, put your fingers to the keyboards or pen on paper. So no, it wasn't linear. And because, I mean, it's interesting to hear you say that about it, you know, how it's set out, because for me, it didn't happen like that very much at all, because there are pieces within the pieces that actually kind of jump forward and then go back. And so, you know, there's kind of I mean, you said earlier, Tara, you know, that the messiness of it, you know, not just emotionally, but also structurally, or, you know, thinking about how it is going to look. No, it wasn't linear at all.
No. And I kind of knew that it wasn't, but, you know, I really feel, and when I'm reading Take Off Your Armor, for me, it feels like it has, you know, that very wonderful flow, and it does feel like it kind of like takes us through this kind of journey of your life in a really powerful way. So I think it's helpful, again, for people to hear that even if you are writing about your own life experience, that you don't have to write in this linear way. You don't have to kind of go, well, this happened then, and, you know, that can feel incredibly restrictive. So and actually, you know, hearing all of you talk about it being messy, the process, it's incredible, really, to look at the books that have come out of it, because I think you can feel the powerful, like, transformational energy in your words, but they're so kind of coherent, and like I said, there's just such a gorgeous flow to all of them. So again, I think it's so interesting to know that behind the scenes it was messy and often challenging process. So
but can I just say as well, you know, the other great thing about the Unbound Writing Mastermind course was that, you know, you hold it so beautifully, Nicola, and the other women within the circle as well, you know, having the support. It was, I mean, I've said to you on many occasions, I could not have done it without knowing that I was going to be held within that circle, you know, even being online, you know, it was so held, and it was so beautiful and so supportive, and just, you know, hearing the other women's experiences of the writing, and then hearing some of their writing, and then being able to read some of my own writing to you and to them, and that was very beautiful. And in those messiest moments, in those really dark places of just being completely terrified about revisiting stuff that's so painful, knowing that it was safe to do that. That's what really empowered and enabled me to get that stuff down. And as you said, Tara, you know, the healing process that happens within all of that is very, very powerful. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And, you know, I feel support of some kind is really important through the writing process. And it just so happens that the authors we've got on this call were all part of the Unbound Writing Mastermind. And I do want to say, with the Unbound Press, we don't just work with authors who have been through the mastermind process. Anyone, if you're feeling the call to write a book and the idea of the Unbound Press resonates, get in touch. There's different ways that I can support you. Or you may come with a finished manuscript. There's a lot of flexibility there. But I think throughout the mastermind, I tend to develop a strong relationship with both kind of the writers and their books. So I'm always like, I would love to publish that through the Unbound Press, because, I've been there throughout the process. So, Harmony is saying, good to hear that. I've looked at the mastermind, but it's sadly outside of my financial reach. Well, there are always ways of getting support. I think I've just shared over in the Unbound Writing Challenge, when I wrote my first book, I just had an accountability buddy who I would speak with every week. We would just get together. We were both writing our first books. So I think there's always ways of creating support for yourself, and it is really, really important, particularly when you're writing these kind of transformational books. So Angie, what's it been like for you to release, and it's very recent, with Take Off Your Armour?
Yeah.
What's that been like to have your book out in the world?
It's been amazing, exciting, really nerve-wracking to begin with. I think you said earlier just that fear at the back. Oh my goodness, what are people going to think of this, and what are they going to say about this, and are people going to react really strongly in a way that could be really challenging, but that hasn't happened. It's people have reacted strongly, but in a way that I hope they would. Even with the challenging bits in the book. So yeah, it's been wonderful, but also you were speaking about detachment from it, Tara, and I began to feel that quite quickly, and then I picked it up again yesterday because I was writing in response to a program that I heard on Radio 4 about institutions that are treating people with learning disabilities really appallingly, and I wanted to put something from my book into my response to that, and it was so wonderful to be able to pick up my book and go, yes, this is the piece that needs to be shared with this person now, to further the message, to get the message out to an even wider audience. So that's really exciting. So I feel like the book is, I think as you both said, now taking on a life of its own, but still being held by me, but not in a held way to me, but a held way to go, yeah, okay, here we go. Yes, it can go further, it can go more, it can go broader. So that feels exciting.
Absolutely. And being able to go back to your book and refer back to it for yourself, and just you've got that, then you can anchor back into it when you're sharing it in different ways, or using it to connect with different people as well. Is very, very powerful. And I think that relationship just continues to evolve. I find myself going back to both Heal Your Inner Good Girl and Unbound, and my relationship changes with both of those books over time. And I think it's important actually for people to hear, like, there tends to be a lot of focus on the release of books into the world. Like, everyone's encouraged to kind of go crazy around the launch, and again, that's something that I want to kind of like question really with the Unbound Press, because each of these books has a long lifetime, the potential to have a long life, and you don't have to kind of kill yourself like on the launch date and pre-launch. I want that to feel really sustainable, and and for these books to have a legacy. and have that potential to have that longer term relationship with you and each of the readers. So yeah, interesting to see how that evolves. And Angie, I know you as well are writing your second book now.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us some more about that? It's up to
you. It's I mean, it's come from my first book, and specifically the pieces about menopause, and I just feel so strongly, so passionately that we need to be talking about the menopause, as you know, just in general conversation with somebody that you're in the line with at the grocers or whatever, or someone you meet at the bus stop, or men and women, and so yes, the book is going to be about menopause, and I'm actually have invited, I think it's about 15 women so far, to be interviewed by me, to have their voice. So it's about women's voices, our real life experiences of what it is to approach, be in, and come out the other side of the most incredible transition of our lives. And it can be so magical, even with all of the difficult stuff, the challenging stuff, the messy stuff that it undoubtedly is, being a menopausal woman. It is also pure alchemy, and that's just not talked about. Menopause is not talked about, generally speaking, in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
It's interesting. I haven't made this connection, but I remember when we were just launching the Unbound Press, and I really wanted one of the books. Was interested in working with an author around a book on menopause and like giving a different perception of it. So that's so amazing and magical that you are actually writing it. So wonderful. And I am getting a bit distracted by Anna's cat. I can just tell.
Oh, I'm so sorry. She's like a little moth to a flame with this kind of energy. She
loves it.
Can't stay awake. So I'm sorry. She's
it's all. I haven't got my glasses on, so it's all a blur to me anyway.
But she obviously loved what you were talking about, Angie, because she's just going crazy.
Sorry for the distraction.
It's beautiful. Anna or Tara, have either of you got anything you would like to ask Angie, or anything you want to share with Angie?
I have my copy of Take Off Your Armour, and it's on my to read pile, so I'm very excited to read it. And I think it was interesting what you were saying earlier about people taking different things away from it, because for me, I think when I first heard about it, it was the social inclusion message that really got my attention. And I guess that's the wonderful thing, isn't it, that people will come to your book with a different need, or a different something they want to explore, and then we get the whole book as a gift to take away. So thank you for that.
That's great. Thank you. I can't wait to hear what you think.
No, I'm exactly the same. I've got my copy here with me, and I'm actually intently looking after my brother who's disabled. So that was huge. Like, wow, connection with me. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Great.
Wonderful. That was my experience of reading it. I got so much from it that maybe I didn't expect. And I remember messaging you, Angie, and going, oh my god, the things you were sharing, a lot of the kind of the tools you were sharing that you had done through being an inclusion warrior. It's like, oh my goodness, this needs to be shared with everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the beauty of inclusive practice. It is about including everybody. It is for every one of us. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. So if anyone's got any questions, I can see DK's just typed in a question, so I'm going to answer that. Anyone who's with us live, if you've got any questions, please type them in and I will answer them. So DK, you're asking, practical question for me, does Unbound Press only actually publish women writers? Still the only guy in the group. Yeah, I love, DK, that you were part of the Unbound Writing Challenge this week. And the Unbound Press right now, it was started to work with female authors in particular. And the reason for that was, I feel, a lot of women have felt not able to share their stories kind of fully, and their magic in the world fully. Women tend to have experienced like all of these different ways, which, you know, anyone can experience, but through my kind of lens, and the lens of like the inner good girl, and the ways that we you know, are taught to hold back and please others. I feel kind of a lot of women have experienced that, so feel reluctant, or can feel a reluctance to sharing their stories. So that was part of my mission around the Unbound Press, was to kind of provide a platform for women to be their fully expressed selves. Saying that, it may well change in the future. And you're saying, does it matter that I'm actually a trans man? Yeah, that I wasn't assigned male at birth. I was socialized female. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd be really interested to have a conversation with you around that, DK. It is something that came up. One of the authors who was interested in working with us was in a similar situation, actually, and decided not to go ahead. But I would really be interested to have a conversation with you, because this is an evolving kind of entity, the Unbound Press. And, you know, I started it with a particular kind of intention, but I'm always open to kind of having conversations, and like I said, that evolving. So I would love to have that conversation with you, because, you know, there are so many different groups and so many different ways that we can feel shut down and not able to express ourselves. So at the end of the day, the whole all of my work that I do around Unbound is about helping others to be more fully expressed. So yeah, let's definitely have a conversation. And anyone else who's watching, who is interested in finding out more about the Unbound Press, I would love to have a chat with you. Like I say, quite often I find it hard to put into words what it is. And because it is this, or it feels like this organic and continually evolving entity, and it's co-created, you know, it's not just yay, harmony, yeah, we're speaking next week, which I'm really looking forward to. You know, it's this co-created experience, this co-created kind of platform. So each of the authors that we work with bring something very special into it, and that's going to carry on and continue. Oh, so DK, you're saying, okay, thank you to all the panelists, great first year celebration. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, thank you so much for joining us live, everyone who has, and also recording. Thank you for joining us for this celebration. And thank you so much to Tara, Anna and Angie for being part of it, and all of our other authors who are here with us in spirit. I can't wait to see what happens over the next year and beyond, and for your next books to emerge into the world as well. Has anyone got anything that they wanted to say before we finished?
Just a big thank you and congratulations on the first year of the Unbound Press. And it is really exciting to see how it evolves going forward as well, because as you say, it feels like a very creative, organic space. So well done, Nicola.
Yeah,
you're amazing.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to all of you as well. You're all part of it. So thank you so much. Thank you to Tara for being, I know it's quite late where you are, so I appreciate you staying up for this. And thank you to Anna and Angie as well. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, and yeah, let's see what happens next with the Unbound Press.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.